And welcome to the Consistent Performance Podcast here with another episode. I'm your host, Killian, and today it's about how you can have less stress and more time when you're scaling your business. And that's when you're scaling your business from 6 to 7 figures, or even from 7 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures. Depends, of course, on your business, what type of business you have, right? If it's e-com or if it's coaching or if it's an agency business and so on. But I just had a coaching call with a client of mine, and they own an e-commerce business. They're doing already 8 figures in their e-commerce business, and they're trying to scale that further. And of course, one big challenge is always the team, right? And so we found out he wants to scale the business but have less stress at the same time. And the biggest factor for stress and taking up his time is actually that things are going wrong in the business, or that things demand his attention. And when I say him, I talk about the owner, the CEO of the business. Okay. And that's why it's so important that you address this issue. What do you want in the end? The guy told me, he said, "Hey, I actually just want to have a day where I don't have to jump into Slack. I don't have to have any fires that come to me. And I don't have to have any chaos, right? Any fires to put out. That would reduce my stress massively." And he would have more time as well for other things, right? Or for growing, working on the business, or for even personal things, doing more sports and things like that as well. So now the question is it realistic that you will just have less problems and therefore, we get rid of all of them and there will be no more issues? Well, probably not. But what you can do is you can have someone responsible for dealing with it instead of you. So you can delegate certain areas, certain responsibilities. And that's what we discussed. A lot of guys, they have to make the mistake that they, in their business, they don't build it on solid foundations. And that's something I discovered myself recently, and something I implemented for my business, consistent performance mentoring for a coaching business myself, which is defining your core values, or core virtues of your business, and then also the vision and the mission. And from there, you define the expectations and the standards that the employees have to meet. And these are standards for working, standards for how you collaborate, standards for how you communicate. So all of these things are super important. If you don't set up this properly, if your employees cannot even name your core values, cannot even name the expectations you have for how they communicate, what the standards are, even what words you use, the vibe and the culture you have, then it's very likely that you have expectations for them. They don't know about it. And then you are frustrated that you have to put out the fire that they weren't able to put out themselves. So that's why it's so important that you do this foundational work once. How do you do this? You define what I just said: vision, mission, and values. But you have to describe them properly so they're understandable and that they are also applicable to the daily life in your company. Meaning, what is a typical scenario? And therefore, what would a value help with that? So let me give you an example. One of the values that I have is full ownership, meaning that you have a clear responsibility in your company, right? Everybody has clear responsibilities. So even further than that, you think about it first that way. You have different divisions in your business, right? You have like marketing, sales, content, and that's under marketing, and you have finance, and you have operations, and all of that. And in each of these areas, there are certain functions that have to be done, right? Like posting content, doing sales calls, and all of that. And for these things, you need to have an overview where it's clear what everybody is doing and what area which person is responsible for. Because then when people know clearly what they're responsible for, you can start this ownership culture where people know we expect you to be responsible for the outcome. And you also see what actually people are doing and what is on your plate and what you shouldn't be doing anymore because it's someone else's responsibility. That's hugely important. And once you do that, you can see where there are bottlenecks, where people are inefficient, and similar things. And once you realize that, then you can go ahead and then also define with people, okay, what needs to be improved? And so once you have this value of full ownership, you can reinforce this value in meetings. You reinforce it by even putting it in your office. I will do that soon. And you can do it by in the communication on Slack, for example, you reinforce those as well. So people know these are our values and they know, okay, how should I behave? It's like a decision-making shortcut. How should I behave on a daily basis so that we achieve the outcomes, the vision and the mission of our business, and then of course the goals. So this is hugely important that you define this, and you can simply set this up in like Notion or something and have a handbook for your employees. And that when they get on board, when you're hiring people, you guide them through this and you make sure they understand this, they ask questions on it. And it's very clear what is expected, when people should be working, especially for remote teams. What types of communication tools you're using, what you expect from them for behaviors, things like, on meetings, being on time and not using the phone nearby, and like very little things that seem trivial, but all of these things stack up. And so when you define this, then you can create a culture where people do things automatically that you expect them to, and where people take ownership of certain areas and you don't have to worry about them anymore or much less. And then, of course, you have to find the right people. You start hiring according to these values. You filter the people out that are fitting this already. And then everything is much easier. This is something I think many people neglect. Of course, you can reduce your stress by, doing more sport and by having better routines and sleep. And we do all of this. But it won't work if your business is chaos, if you don't have good team members, if you don't set yourself up for a solid foundation in terms of your company culture, and if you don't set the right expectations from the start. Then you will only have stress, and then you will not have the time to do all these other things. That's why that's super important. Hope that was helpful for you guys. If you want any help with that, right? Helping you how to organize yourself better, therefore organize the business better, set better expectations so that you have less stress and more time and can really do consistency or have consistency with routines, with energy, with sleep, with health, and so on, while you scale your business to the next level, 6, 7, 8 figures. Then let's have a conversation. Let's have a free consultation call with me. Go to kilianmarket.com, book that into the calendar, select your free slot there, and then we'll make a plan and see if and how we might be able to help you to scale your business to the next level with less stress, more time, and just better balance in general. All right. Hope that was helpful, and see you on our conversation and the next episode.